Early South American estimates for blending and a rally in the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Jerry Gidel is ready to assess that right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, before we jump into the South American estimates, what did you think about this rally? All three commodities ended up in a rally on Friday.
Yes, well, the all kind of combination of some of the exports we had the previous day that's going to set the tone for some improvement, and then it looked like that we got some people short covering there on Friday to add to it, which was definitely positive at this point. Saying we've been pretty defensive, I should say, over the last couple of weeks here with limited kind of stress. We did have some of our hottest weather of the week, or the summer actually, for the Eastern Corn Belt in Illinois and Indiana, when we popped up to just a smidgen under 100 degrees on Wednesday. We had some showers, but interestingly enough, the shower activity, I think that's part of the other reason why this market was kind of sensitive to maybe some short covering, was that the moisture was significant in eastern Iowa, southeast Minnesota, far western Illinois, and that. But it's relatively modest as it came through northeast Illinois and down into central Illinois. It didn't. There was 1 to 2 inch opportunities in that first area there, but boy, there's most of them ½ inch or less, and minimal stuff in Indiana, Ohio. So I think that was another factor that jumped into this thing here, was the fact that many places in the Eastern Corn Belt here during the month of August really didn't average they were below average on stuff, anywhere from 30 to 40%. Certain areas even made 50% of normal. So I think that's part of the factor that kind of came in there on Friday. Also, like you mentioned, some other commentary from South America that popped in about their ideas about the 2024-25 plannings down there. But I'd have to say that, this is kind of the choppiness. We had a 3-day weekend. I think people were nervous about that. And interestingly, even on Friday, everybody was looking for big deliveries, but we only had 12 in corn, and I think it was 6 or 7 in beans. That's pretty minimal type stuff. I think this whole scenario that's happened from, say, 18 months or 2 years ago, on when we ended up having heavy deliveries that took the spot price, below value, and that a lot of people are just getting out and moving on. They're not messing around being involved in the Chicago Board of Trade delivery process. And so I think that's another feature that jumped in here that maybe supported this a little bit on Friday with the long weekend, since the trading won't begin until Monday night.
Well, and this week we have had South American estimates, early planting in South America. Some corn areas have already started planting in the south of Brazil and Argentina, and soybean will be next. Um, what's your view on these early estimates?
Well, they're definitely this world price is taking this significant decline here during the month of August, and that definitely puts a lot more strain on their prospects down there in both Argentina and Brazil. Yes, there is some early soybean plantings going on there in Rio Grande at this point. I don't know as to well, it's important. It turns up that what is Mato Grosso and what timing on that. It's a little drier up that direction. We'll see how quickly they start to make moves on that one from there. But the expectations in the surveying of the prospects in Brazil for soybean plantings seems to be basically unchanged and maybe even slightly lower here, a percent or so, which is highly unusual. I don't think that, and it's a long ways from the standpoint that getting all the bean plantings done, even after we do corn, secondary corn there in January and February. Will we be lower? I don't know about that, but in the short term, at least, that was highly unusual, and it was noted in the world there at that point. The other scenario that was in the markets or in the news at this point was commentary out of Argentina about their particular prospects for corn because of the leafhopper issues and the poor reduced yields, things of that nature, along with the price going on at this point. That combined to actually one of the exchanges, Rosario, actually was talking about a 2 million metric ton decline in hectares, 2 million hectare decline, I should say, in that particular area. Buenos Aires had a 1.7, but both of those would be a significant decline in the potential prospects. This last year started out 52 or 3. Depends on who you think is right, if it's going to be 49, 9.5, or 50 million because of the leafhopper issues. If we talk about less plantings than that, overall, that could definitely be an interesting one. We've got a lot of time, though, in Argentina on how much corn they plant or don't plant. They have a certain batch of it that gets done here in the fall. Then they do the wheat harvest in late October and early November. And then they turn around and plant some more beans and plant corn after that. So it's a pretty drawn out process. But I think it really notes the fact that the current prices are not really economical for producers around the world to add more acreage, and in some cases here in corn in Argentina, actually having to go down in this as much as percentage wise. I think that's somewhere around 20-25%. So that is a significant adjustment if it actually occurs. And it might have been some background scenarios to some of the strength we had at the end of the week.
Well, and based on that scenario that you described, both from the US and South America, what do you think is going to happen in terms of prices in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think until we get past the September 12th USDA crop report, which will update us here with the U.S. Yield prospects at this point. At this juncture, at least, everybody's kind of staring out the window here, anticipating the USDA to potentially reduce its corn acres from the various surveys that's been out there. Pro Farmer's been across the U.S. They had reduced down Illinois' crop from 225 down to 220, which I think is a very reasonable situation considering what we saw out there in our tour in early part of August, where it was a lot more variable. I think everybody assumed every field was just going to be super out there, and it really wasn't from there. And then this last week, even, there's been a couple different well-known tours that's gone on Central Illinois, and both the yield checks that they had from kind of some of the same counties, some of the different additional ones, but out there looking at cornfield samples and that were really weren't. If you're going to end up having a 225 number for Illinois, you have to have some of these yield checks on a pretty wide open area, in the 230, 35, something like that. There were some 225s, 230s out there on averages, but that doesn't, there's a lot of areas in the state of Illinois, particularly in the bottom third of the state that doesn't even have the potential to see 200 bushels, even in good years. If it is, it's just barely above it. So I kind of feel like that I'm anticipating that number on the 12th to actually see maybe another bushel and a half down. Now, that includes some issues out there in Minnesota, some areas of South Dakota that got hit by these wet rains, late plantings, things like that, issues out there. And maybe just a few bushel or two less in some of these eastern states accordingly at this point from there. So now 179 and a half is still a super good yield. That would still be about 2.2 bushels above last year's record level. And so, it's still, we're going to have a substantial corn out here on the production, but this 2 billion carryover stock for next year could get whittled down quite rapidly here as we go forward. And if we have less plantings and things like that in South America on corn, less competition, because right now the weather in Europe was not great this year on wheat for sure, and it's erratic, and it's already been kind of factored in the Black Sea, but it's still a factor out there on that and how many bushels we'll have available from there. Beans, boy, the survey from Pro Farmers shows a lot of pods out there, and that's they put their number up to well, all of a sudden I'm missing it here. I think it's 54.9 on that one. Actually, I looked at their state by state numbers that they put out there late last week on that. They put some pretty hefty number jumps above the USDA. I don't disagree that they're going to potentially have some higher yields out in Indiana, Ohio than what the USDA had. But at the same time, I'm not sure we're going to end up having, they were using 67 for Indiana versus 62 of the USDA. That's a 5 bushel jump. That's pretty impressive. Not to say that it can't happen, but scenarios out in Minnesota, they also didn't see the kind of pods that the USDA did. So that's lower. And even in their estimate for Nebraska is less than the USDA. So kind of a mixed bag there on that. But I kind of feel like that particular number myself is going to be about 54, 2 or 3 on that one, which is going to be a potential yield opportunity on things. The soybean side of things, we're going to need to end up keeping our demand up and things like that. Because the one thing about it is that both the U.S. and South America, soybeans have less cost to put in the ground. So it is a possibility that if you don't plant corn or decide not to do other things, beans can always get thrown in the ground and see what happens. So I kind of feel like that's another twist on this thing. But I just don't know if they're going to have the kind of super yields that the pods might say. Even this last week's 2 or 3 days of hot weather could have impacted the soybean pod counts. Things haven't been as I said, the extremely wet here in the Eastern Corn Belt, and the two highest yields or two highest pod counts were Illinois and Indiana, over 1.4 excuse me, 1,400 pods per acre kind of counts, and that's pretty impressive. If that slipped down even 10%, that have a big impact on our yields out there. So those are the things that make things a little uncertain. I'd have to say though that the weather stress is there's one chance of it the middle latter part of next week, but right now at least we'll just have to see what the moisture content's going to, how much rain we get here in the Eastern Corn Belt, because it's an area that's a subtle one that sometimes really kind of sucks out some of the late life if you don't have that finishing rain out there to keep the uh, corn from tipping back on the ears or having the bean pod stay on the plants.
All right, we'll continue to check and we'll talk to you before the report next week.
Exactly. From there. So, everyone hopefully has a nice Labor Day weekend out there, and it's at least look like it's going to be a less stressful heat wise than we've had the last couple weeks or so. Let's enjoy the weekend.